Hi, welcome to Introduction to Week 2 for Human Talent and Recruitment. I'm going to be going over the Week 2 assignment in detail with you so that you'll be able to successfully complete your Week 2 assignment. So, one of the most important things about building principals is that they know how to promote high quality teaching by using the selection, placement, and retention practices where they promote teacher excellence and growth. And once the applicant applies for a position, the principal needs to review and screen those applicants and choose several of those applicants to interview. In addition, as a new principal, you're going to need to know how to engage, model, communicate ethics and professional norms related to recruitment, selection, and hiring. So in week 2, we're going to give you an opportunity to go about demonstrating your ability to develop a hiring plan based on some gaps in a campus staff and ensuring that ethical practices are being used in the process. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you do is to follow the rubric. Oftentimes students will say to us, well, why didn't I get all the points for my assignment? Well, when we're scoring and your IAs are scoring, we're looking for everything that's in column 5, which is the exceeds criteria column. So as you begin to look at your assignment, make sure that you are following the criteria in that exceeds column. So for instance, if you look at the first column, look at number 5. It says articulate your understanding and capacity to undertake and implement this work within a school setting. So we want you to be able to share with us how you're going to do this when you become a campus leader. So just make sure that you're reviewing carefully because this is the rubric that your IAs are scoring you with. So review the rubric very carefully. All right, let's talk about part 1. So in part 1, you're going to meet with a minimum of 3 of your classroom teachers. Now, because of COVID, you can do this electronically. If you want to meet face-to-face, you can do that. However, you need to get with 3 of them. And you're going to engage in some reflective practice by reviewing the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, their model code of ethics. And so what you're going to do is you are going to then cultivate a set of norms, dispositions, or core beliefs for your campus. This is really, really important when you become a campus leader, is to know how to sit down with your staff and model and engage and facilitate the development of these core beliefs, because that helps you think about the kinds of teachers that you want on your campus. And so instead of just coming up with a warm body, you have a direction that you want to go. So that's why you're doing this particular activity. So you're going to look at those code of ethics, and then you're going to develop your own norms. Make sure that your norms are supporting the educational success and well-being of each student and adult on your campus. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to develop a teacher profile, so that when you begin to think about what kind of person that you want on your campus, whether it's if you're looking for a math teacher, an English language arts teacher, a coach, it doesn't really matter. You're looking at a profile to say the person that we're looking for meets this criteria. So it's really important that you know the kind of person that you want on your campus, who works well with the other teachers, who has the same kinds of dispositions and personalities and beliefs and those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you can develop that teacher profile. And then you're going to articulate your understanding of how you're going to implement this in your school and why it's important. So let's take a look at the assignment. The first one says, after reviewing the MCEE, you're going to create your norms, disposition, core beliefs based on that. Now, people always ask me, how many do I have to have, Dr. Cummings? Well, I think that you need at least 3 or 4 to really get a good idea about what your core beliefs are for your campus. So I would say 3 to 4 would be enough. You can have more than that, but not less. Then you're going to create your teacher profile for screening and selection. So I've given you a sample. You might say the ideal teaching candidate is a student-centered, lifelong learner who is aligned with our mission and vision of the school and is a collaborative team member. Now, this is just a very simple profile. You may want to make it more detailed, but you can say our vision and mission says this. So you might need to add some of the language from your vision and mission into your profile so that when the teacher comes in and you're screening applicants, you can say, this person does not meet that. I've had many principals tell me before, I can hire someone that knows their content, but we have a specific idea about how we discipline in our school. And if that person doesn't align with that belief, we don't want them, because it has to be a heart thing, not a head thing. Learning your curriculum and being able to teach math or science or whatever can be a head thing. But the heart thing is, how do you address students and how do you work with your colleagues? And so that's the kind of thing that you'll want in your profile for screening. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to develop 4 to 5 interview questions that align with your norms and your candidate profile. Now, when you do this, make sure you go back to week 1 and look at legal policy DAA, because you want to make sure that you're aligned with what legal policy says when you are interviewing. Include questions based on your campus vision, mission, and campus improvement plan. So if you see gaps, you might want to ask the teacher about academic gaps or the candidate. Make sure that your questions align with EEOC. I don't think I have to tell you this, but make sure that you're not asking about race, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, and the list goes on. And then number 4 is going to be, as a future leader, why would it be important to establish norms, dispositions, core beliefs, and an ideal teacher profile? So that's going to be your part 1. Now, part 2 is going to be looking at the gaps on your school. So before a team sits down and develops a comprehensive recruitment, selection, and hiring approach, most of them take a look at their current status of staffing needs and recruitment efforts so that they are addressing those needs. So, using the chart that I've given you, you're going to take a look at where there are gaps, okay, in your school. Now, one of 2 things can happen. We have given you some data because of COVID. You may not be able to get to your data. Some of you now are going back into virtual schools. It's very difficult to get in touch with your principal to find out who has this data. So we've given you some data. You can use this data. You can use your own school data. You can use a mixture of the 2. And you may have to do that when you start answering the questions, because you're going to be looking at where are our needs when we start hiring. You don't want to just hire. You don't want to hire an English language arts teacher when you need a teacher in science. You don't want to hire a teacher who has critical thinking when that seems to be a gap in your faculty. You don't have a whole lot of people who are critical thinkers. So that's what you're going to be looking at. So as you look at this, you're looking at the teacher, and you can just put, some kind of code in there. You don't put their names. How many years have they been teaching? How many years have they been at your school? What grade are they currently teaching? What grade or content have they previously taught? What are their certifications? What's their highest degree? And then as you take a look at this skill level, are there some areas in those skill levels that they really are have more skills in that area? So you don't have to list 5 or 6 of them. You can list a couple. You can list 1, whatever. But you're looking for skill levels. It's really important that you have a team where you've got some good communicators, people that are good at organization, people that are good at collaboration, all those kinds of things. And so you want to make sure you include that. So again, let me say this. You can use this data. You can use your own data, or you can use a combination of both, whichever you prefer to do. Okay? Now, once you get that data and then you have your own knowledge and experiences from your school, we're going to ask you the following questions. So what are the content gaps in your school? For example, excuse me, I went up too far. So for example, what percentage of teachers are teaching outside their certification area? You may have none, you may have a lot. What's the number of teachers with a master's degree in a content area? What percentage of teachers are teaching in their first year of teaching? Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because you want to take a look at, if you're looking at your academic achievement, do you find that you're scoring lower in those areas where teachers are there their first year of teaching? Or do you find that when you have your older teachers who are not as adept at technology and those kinds of things are not scoring as well? So that's why it's important to think about where are the highest percentage of your teachers. And does your district expect any changes in student enrollment for the next year? Now, I know this one may be a hard one, but close to where I live, these school districts are planning for the next 5 years, where some of them who have been very small rural schools are looking at a growth expectation where they may have become a 5A school or a 6A school. So this is where you may need to talk to someone in your district office about this, or your campus principal. Okay, what are the skills gaps? You're going to take a look at that and you're going to say, oh my goodness, we don't have anyone on our campus that's really good with classroom management. Or we may not have anyone that's really good with digital skills. So you're going to take a look at that and figure out. Again, you can either use your own data, or you can use this data, or a combination of both. So where is the diversity in your school? Is it in one grade or a content area? Is there diversity of skill throughout the school? So you're going to refer to that data again about those skill gaps to respond to that question. What about, is there diversity of experience? Do you have a school that has all teachers that have been there over 25 years? Or do you have a school that has teachers that are there 1 to 3? So where is their diversity? And then where are the equity gaps? How many grade levels have inexperienced teachers, less than 3 years? What grade levels have more inexperienced teachers? What grade levels have higher rates of teacher turnover? Now, this is where you probably are going to have to talk to your campus principal about where are we having teacher turnover. Is it in those testing grades? Where are we having it? Is it in, what place are we having it? Is it in kindergarten, where they're really focusing on early literacy? So, what are we going to have to do there? And then also the next one, what percentages of teachers are leaving by race, ethnicity, and by student race and ethnicity? Because you want to make sure that your teacher population looks like your student population. Now, go back to look at number 5. For example, consider the following questions. You may not be able to answer all these questions because you may not have the data. Don't let it bother you. Just answer the questions that you can. Because remember, we're looking at exceeds criteria. We want to make sure that you can look at this chart and you can identify equity gaps in your school. Okay? And then number 6, based on the evaluation of your school's professional staff capacity needs, identify what your current staffing is. So let's say your superintendent sends a message. You're the campus principal. There's 6 elementary campuses. You're an elementary campus principal. Superintendent sends you a letter. Says, hey, elementary principals, I think we're going to be able to hire 2 new staffing positions for elementary campus. I need you to justify why you need them. You're going to have to justify that by looking at this evidence that you've got, this data. So how do you identify that? Okay, so that's number 6. And then based on the summary of your data and your reflections, now we're going to use some research-based practices to plan recruitment, selection, hiring, and induction processes. I've given you some guiding questions. You're going to use those guiding questions. You're going to refer to your week 2 readings, especially your Breakthrough Principles Chapter 5, to assist you with this. So, after you determine your needs, what's the process in your school for notifying the central office that you need a faculty position? Where do you find most of your successful hires? What's the current hiring process? How do you announce positions? What are some research-based practices for hiring? You may have to go out and look, or you may be able to get in touch with your HR person to see if possibly they can help you with that. I'm hoping that our guest speakers will address some of that with us tomorrow night as well. If the current hiring process has been in place for several years, have your teachers you hired remained at the school? So are you being successful with your recruitment and hiring process? How do you include members of your team in the hiring process? Identify the criteria that you're going to use to screen your candidates, like your interview questions and those kinds of things. How are you going to assess the candidates that you see? How do you check references on them? I want you to identify 3 questions that you would ask references. Remember to be very careful about those questions that you ask. How are final decisions made and how will the candidates be notified? And then as a future school leader, explain your understanding and capacity regarding how you're going to undertake and implement a recruitment, selection, and hiring process. Okay, so that's week 2. I hope this video is going to help you be able to successfully get this completed. And we'll talk about some questions in the office hours if you still are unclear about some things. So we'll see you in the web conference Monday evening.